Time now for Media Watch with our James Creedon. Hello, James.
Hi, Sanam.
You're beginning with Sri Lanka, where there are emerging concerns surrounding press freedom, especially as we are facing a very massive political turmoil there at the moment.
That's right. And last Friday, it's kind of come to the attention increasingly over the last few days of media across the world, the plight, I suppose, of certain journalists in Sri Lanka. But last Friday, when Mahinda Rajapaksa was controversially named as a prime minister, almost immediately afterwards, a lot of people loyal to him in his party went into several state media bodies, public media broadcasters, 2 TV stations, several radio stations, 2 or 3 different public but also privately owned, the Lake House Press Group, print press organisation. So this was very coordinated, and it was across a wide range of media. And they essentially were dictating what should be said. They ordered a certain 3 different print papers, 2 weeklies and another daily paper, to change their front page. You can see here the Daily News was one of them, and MR, the initials of the Prime Minister, or so we'd like to think in any case, sworn in as Prime Minister, that was put on the front cover. So clearly there was an attempt to manage the message and to dictate to the media what was going on. Perhaps they would have reported that in a more nuanced way. In any case, it's led to quite a degree of condemnation. Reporters Without Borders saying that journalists are being caught in the centre of a bitter power struggle. We call on all parties to act responsibly by guaranteeing journalists' safety. And they were quite harsh in some of their words. The violence with which Mahinda Rajapaksa's bully boys took over the state media is absolutely unacceptable, they said. You also have the International Federation of Journalists echoing the similar concerns, words slightly different, but the sentiments very much aligned with Reporters Without Borders. Also picked up then by local media, that page, the Tamil Guardian there, picking up the fact that media rights organisations around the world were supporting Sri Lankan journalists. So I think that's probably something that they're happy to be able to refer to, because it takes what would you say, it takes the pressure off them to say it in and of themselves. Freedom House and Reporters Without Borders both showing that, in fact, in terms of press freedom, Sri Lanka was doing better over the last number of years. Between 2005 and 2015, when Mahinda Rajapaksa was president, 17 journalists were killed. The situation for journalists was very, very bad at that time. You can see here an article. Unfortunately, all these pages are coming up quite slowly, but there was an article from 2013 in The Guardian talking about a media code that was going to be brought in, if you like, in Sri Lanka, and that was essentially censorship. It was censorship. There's no doubt about it. So there's a fear that we could be going back to, I suppose, what you could call those dark days. But at least there's been a certain amount of international concern, and the spotlight is being put on it.
As always, journalists caught in the firing line when there's a political crisis. James, let's move on to a lengthy newspaper interview given to a French regional newspaper by the President, Emmanuel Macron, where he speaks rather extensively about the current climate across Europe.
That's right. Now, some people seeing this as almost the opening salvo in what will be a very long campaign ahead of the European elections next May. Now, what he is essentially saying here is we are living in a period which is very similar to the interwar period in Europe between the First and the Second World War. And he spoke about the leprosy of sort of extreme nationalism, and that it's extremely important to remain vigilant at this time. So it was something along those lines. Now, it was relayed by some Twitter accounts such as Macron Sweden. So there's a little En Marche movement in Sweden, and she translated this lady here one of the sentences from their article. We see almost methodically the re-articulation of everything that dominated the life of Europe in that period. And of course, it is an idea that comes back quite a lot, that we're sort of living in a period in history where there are echoes of certain fascistic tendencies in politics. Now, not everybody agreed with him, and some are accusing him, such as this headline here in Le Figaro, of dramatising the situation and perhaps exaggerating just how grave things are. Let's remember how bad things were in Europe in the 1930s. We're probably not quite there yet. Hopefully we never will be again. In any case, the dramatist is the headline here in the Huffington Post French edition. Now, what's interesting about that is he has taken a few days off quite unusually at this time of the year, and was his communications people spoke about him being quite fatigued. We remember that he's had quite a difficult few months politically, quite a few scandals and whatnot. So he took a few days off, moved the Council of Ministers meeting forward by one day, which irked some. And apparently now he seems to be well enough to meet the public, and he's been photographed out. The media kind of were following him around in the town of Honfleur in Normandy, where he was looking very well, I think.
Rather dapper there.
Indeed,
I
I like the jacket, might I say. In any case, people were, some cartoonists were making a little bit of fun of the situation, saying, "Oh, he'll have to kind of débarquement, the Normandy landings." I'm not sure if that's in very good taste. Anyway, but this is where it's going to be the centenary of World War I commemorations coming up next week. So I suppose to speak about the interwar period is quite relevant in that sense. Just very quickly, his poll ratings are dropping. This was a poll done by YouGov for the Huffington Post. Now his approval rating is around 20%. Now at the same period in his presidency, François Hollande was about 15%. So, degrees of awfulness really in terms of poll ratings. Poor Brigitte Macron has taken a hit as well. So yeah, her popularity ratings. She's not as popular as Carla Bruni was at the same time, although why should we really care, seeing as it's not an official role anymore?
Or compare.
Right.
James, thank you very much for that segment with Media Watch.